Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Y'all don't have to be so stale.
Gotta break in.
You got to break in. Thank you so much for being here. I am super excited to be able to share this time and space with some of the most important people in my life. So as you all know, I'm very interested in storytelling. I majored in journalism and media studies at Bennett College. And storytelling is really important to me because people who don't have voices really rely on the curiosity of people who enjoy telling stories so that their voices are heard. And so there are a lot of things that I know personally. Specifically, I'm interested in examining how trauma impacts people's everyday lives and how people recover from it, right? Because we all have our own unique stories and we all find our own ways in coping. And so I'm hoping to, over the course of the next year, to interview a lot more people, to do a lot more writing, to podcast and share some of the, stories of resilience that I've heard from just people in my everyday interactions. And I thought, we should start here first, right, at the family. So this episode is called Family Affair. And one of the reasons why it was important for me to have this specific episode talking about trauma is because our family, as we know, has experienced a lot of different traumas in terms of the carceral system, in terms of, the child protective welfare system. All these different systems, healthcare systems have impacted us in ways that are not unique just to us. We see it, on television. We see it. We have friends and family who are in similar situations. But this is also the first time that we're spending time together, like in another state, celebrating a huge accomplishment. And so I wanted to address like how we as a family have kind of worked through some of our traumas to even arrive at this moment. So that's what this episode is going to be all about. Does anybody want to add anything? You guys feel good? How are you feeling?
Oh, great, actually.
Great.
I think this is exciting.
Wonderful.
For us to share this with other people. Because believe it or not, it makes, we will be making an impact to somebody listening in.
Yeah.
Just by sharing our story and being transparent with folks that we don't even know and don't know us. So I think this is big, and thank you for having us.
Yeah. So I'm going to go around the table. Right now, to my left is my little sister, Waleena.
Hey.
I have one sister. She's the one and only. And she lets it be known real clear. And to her left is my grandmother, Waleena's twin, fast forward. You know what I'm saying? And she is here. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And then right to my right, my immediate right, is my great aunt, my mom's first aunt,
Sister.
and my grandmother's sister. My mom's
You said
first
you
aunt.
said it correct.
Yeah, my mom's first aunt. Nananette's sister, my grandmother. Nananette. And we call Auntie. Her name is Brenda, but we call her Auntie. Say hey to the people, Auntie.
Hi, thank you for don't let me laugh. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So I want to first start by saying, Waleena, you have been... So our family was impacted by the 1980s crack epidemic. It hit us really, really hard. My mother, who will join us later, hopefully, fingers crossed, was, addicted to crack cocaine. And it really impacted her ability to support her children, to take care of her kids. And so we spent basically our childhoods with my auntie Brenda, who we all call Auntie, to my right. And even in that experience, we've kind of had a lot of ups and downs in terms of who's where, which sibling is going to be moved there. And, my little brother had all of these issues in school, and they were trying to medicate him, and they were trying to put him in special ed, and they were trying to do all these different things. And then my older brother had a lot of run-ins with the carceral system. And for me, I was really lucky to be able to move really young because I went to college. I was 17 when I graduated high school, and I went straight to college. And what that 4 years was able to do for me was provide stability. I didn't have to worry about where I was living. Every day I didn't have to worry about you have roommate issues, but I didn't feel like I didn't trust my roommate. I didn't have to worry about comfortability in my own personal space. And as a result of that, it was the first time I ever got a 4.0, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't because I wasn't capable before, it was because actually now I have the resources that I need to be successful in school. And my family can attest, like since my experience going away to college out of state, first time ever living anywhere by myself, just doors have opened immensely for me just in having the opportunity to remove myself from that situation. But Waleena, I know you have grappled a lot just in terms of where your future is headed and how you're navigating traumas. And can you just tell us a little bit more about just how you're feeling right now and your experience growing up and where you are now?
Well, it's interesting that you asked because on the way here, Auntie Carol and I were having a conversation and she was like, you should just do this. I'm helping Auntie fix her dress. And I like altered it, right? She was like, you need to go for what you want to do and da-da-da-da-da. I said, well, the issue with that is it's challenging to figure out like what I want to do. And I feel like a part of that is due to instability, right? It's like every other day I'm like, figuring out what job I want to work. I want to work here. I'm particular about what I do for a living, right? So it's like the job that I want to do, it's not lucrative. So if there's something I don't like, I draw away from it quickly with no hesitation. I don't think about it. I'm just impulsive. I'm like, it's not working for me here. Let me go here. And now I'm back to the drawing board, right? Chasing my tail, chasing a dollar. And so I would definitely say like, I'm not going to say I didn't have support because I've had the most of the support that I could have up until 26. However...
You're 26 years old.
I'm 26 years old. Thank you. But I feel like it has been challenging due to like my upbringing and me not having the strength to even just pull myself out of
Tell me more about that
environment. I'm very fearful, like realistically speaking, I'm very fearful. And so like change scares me. Transition, I'm not... which is interesting. I'm not well with transition, which is interesting because as a youth, you know, I've adapted to every other situation that we've like come across. And so for whatever reason, it's like maybe that plays a part of like my fear, right? It's like, where am I going to go next? How am I going to do this next? It's like, it's hard for me to be comfortable with change. Like, and so because I'm comfortable with what's working for me, I feel like that has been what's contributing to me being complacent.
You feel complacent?
I do feel complacent.
Okay.
I do.
And what do you think? What do you think is like the driver of that? Then
I think
because you said like growing up, right? That you said you think you're fearful because of your experiences growing up. Can you give me an example of like an experience that you had that maybe like you can reflect on that triggers that fear? You're like, I don't like how that feels.
Well, I know for one, since you've been away, it's like I feel like I've dealt with, well, my brothers have been gone, and I feel like I deal with.
It's the abandonment issues that started from your mom.
Excuse me. This wasn't supposed to happen. I feel like...
Take your time.
Thank you. The fear of letting go, the fear of being that the central piece for all the pieces in my family. I feel like being the glue. Although Auntie is a matriarch and she's been there for everybody, I feel like somebody should be present to keep that together. Thank you. My two brothers, they're gone. We just met a brother about 3 years ago or so, and then we have you away. It's like, as youthful as they may seem, they're getting older. My mother, she still to this day, I just learned last year, September, she still deals with addiction, right? So it's like, if nobody's around, it's kind of like anything is liable to happen to anyone at any given moment. Right. And so I feel this obligation. Yeah. I feel this obligation to just like be in on what everybody is doing and just be that piece. It's like if nobody's talked to Dorisha in a whole week, it's like, oh, but I've talked to her. She's good. If nobody's talked to Auntie in a whole month, it's like, oh, Auntie's good. I was just up there last weekend. You know what I'm saying? Like even when Annette, I'm just building a relationship with her after years. And you're actually a phenomenal grandmother. I like you a real one. But even with that piece, it's like she's been so like just out of the circle from everybody. We only know that she talks to Auntie because that's her sister, right? But it's like,
so growing up, Nana Annette and my aunt are they're sisters, best friends, close in age, but we haven't had the opportunity to build a really strong relationship with my grandmother, and Have you thought about that at all, Annette?
Well, I thought a lot about it, and I know why, but nobody's ever asked me because of the situation when, we've been in trauma since I can remember, since I was a kid, with my mother, her addiction, my sister, and how she was abused, consistently and she had a lot of issues with being with men in trauma, rape consistently. And it was, 40 years later, if you kind of look at somebody the wrong way, but her situations were never addressed. So being Christians, we have understood this family curse thing. We've worked on it. We've prayed about it. We have consistently for the last 40 years been addressing it among ourselves. But there are a lot of issues that kept me away from the grandkids. Your mother's issues with me, not wanting me to have a relationship with her children.
And where do you think that comes from?
That comes from my decisions I made about her and her brother, and which I stand by because economically, Black women have always had, as long as I could remember, as long as I've been here, and I just turned 69, they have had to make tough economical decisions for their children. And unfortunately, children don't always articulate or can articulate what that does to them. When you have to do it alone, I take responsibility for everything I did and always have. Because I was born in a relationship with my family where the same thing. Mothers and fathers had to go to Chicago to work or somewhere else out of the South. We're from Memphis, Tennessee. So for us, it's the norm. Put your kids somewhere where you believe they will be taken care of. Put them in God's hands. That's our belief system. And that's what you're not going to dictate how a child reacts to it, because I can't react. Nobody could predict how I would react when it happened to me. Me being an artist at heart, it didn't affect me as much as someone that's consistently on a job like my sister, what her job path would be. For me, I think Waleena is a true entrepreneur, and she fights against that spirit.
Every day.
And once she lets go and goes with the flow, because cosmetology on the other side of that it encompasses almost every art form.
Yeah, my sister's a cosmetologist, but also just a creative in general.
And so am I.
And so are you.
And so was my mother.
Wow, see, and that
so
even that
father.
I don't know, right? Like I'm learning this right now, and that's the reason why I think so. What I'm hearing you say, Annette, is you've also experienced your own set of traumas through your parent and her addiction, and as a result of that, maybe you've adopted some behaviors or attitudes or mindsets just from being alive and observing your mom that have also impacted your daughter, who is our mother. And I think
we had a grandmother who stepped in and an aunt who stepped in, and they just went on and functioned in the family around the children. That's just the way it was. And there was no shame in that game for them. And they made tough decisions. And they didn't mind it, and they didn't make you a part of it. Their way or the highway. And being in the South, the other side of that was being protected because we lived in the South before segregation. So our story kind of expands. I married Italian, I come into California, I was sent here to San Francisco. I ended up marrying an Italian man, producing another child. So their family things are quite different. So when you were with Brenda and we were building that family, we had very little to do with influence. We couldn't influence what was happening to you at the time. I could come and, if you notice, I would come and visit, and maybe every other year I would bring Valerie.
And Valerie is my
youngest child.
Yeah, our auntie. We call her Auntie Valerie.
So Valerie, at the same time, was going through the same kind of drama because she's a single child. She was she had no family on either side that she could put her hands onto. So she got into the artistic. She liked books and she liked entertainment. So she went all through school with that, and then she went, graduated college. She went to the first time she went to college. She got really, really sick. She went for an audition in somewhere northeast, and she came back very, very ill. And so once she got over that, she went right back to school, right back to books, and then she decided, I want to be a comedian. Nothing else will do. And that's how she ends up in New York, making her own decisions, following her own path.
And she's 30 now, right?
Yeah,
so she's 30, and at 30, and she and I had this conversation. She was saying, I'm like, everybody expects you to have your shit together. I'm still figuring it out, and I'm just gonna do the thing. So what were some of your ideas though about like, to Waleena's point, what have you thought about, like, when you're away and we have all of our siblings, like, what do you think about that? What have you reflected on, I guess, when you have come to visit and our relationship?
Well, I always had everybody one at a time. It's just been a pattern. I either have you one-on-one. I've had Waleena this time one-on-one. It's been a really good experience.
Waleena's
for
been
me.
staying with my grandmother, and now they like
besties.
So she doesn't have that instability issue anymore. If she, she can come and go. She wants to make a decision about her job. It's not like she's going to be outside. She doesn't have to have the fear of, well, if I don't have a job, she's going to put me out. No, none of that. And every now and then we break down and we have these heart-to-hearts, or I just let her just tell me what she wants to do, because there's not always an answer.
So what has that experience been like, getting to know Waleena now as a woman after, all these years now? What has that been like for you?
I think she's an incredible woman, and she's going to be better even if she just lets herself, if she just trusts herself. I think she's at the point now where she can trust herself, and she's scared to take the leap. But whatever it is, it's going to manifest anyway. So,
Whenever,
you know what I mean? But I think she just needs to relax and know that those doors are opening. And there may be multiple doors, but right now she's on a good track. And I think she should just get quiet and start listening to Waleena. Trust Waleena more.
Yeah. That's some good advice. When I, kind of growing up, we spent as I said, a significant period of time being taken care of by my Aunt Brenda, who's here, when my mother could not take care of us. And that's been quite a journey too, just because you have kind of sacrificed a lot through your career goals and your professional goals and your educational goals to take care of somebody else's children, right? Yeah. What has that been like for you? Can you just describe, like, in the height of it, when things are really, really crazy, how the juggle?
It was kind of hectic. I had to deal with a lot of. I had to use all the resources in the community. I used social workers. They had these groups that would come to the house and talk to each child. They had like 5 people in each group. What was it called?
TDM. Team Decision Making Team.
Yeah, and we had that. I was at the school all the time because of the abandonment issues that came with, my niece, Bridget. All of you had problems. So each one of you had to be dealt with equally. So 4 times each one of those things, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So for 2 years, because of the youngest one, Deshaun, I had to take off from work. I quit my job for 2 years. And then...
Can you sit in that for a moment and just describe to me, like, what it looked like on a day-to-day basis? So you quit your job. What led up to that? What made you decide I have to quit the job? What was the thing? What were the things that Deshaun needed?
Yeah. He had to have constant, he had been abused in his foster care, and they were just about to, they wanted to, I can't get words together because, I'm now 70 and all my words are going. But anyway, they were going to adopt him, and I stopped
close
that
his case
action.
permanently.
Yeah, I stopped that action because I believed that all of you need to be with somebody that was blood. So that's why I got him stepped up,
So you felt like Waleena was describing, obligated because nobody was doing it.
Well, not just obligated, because it was my duty, as the oldest one left of my mother's family, keep her family together. So that's why I stepped up. Oh, got the wrong word. Okay, so it was just hectic and busy. And in the meantime, I had just gotten married for the third time. And my husband had a different religion. So we had you guys on the right path, and you started to school your social workers, all of those different agencies, they put out the money and everything for you because they saw that something good in all of you,
Yeah.
So that's how we got everything for you. You got a good foundation, everything. And we pushed for the education because my husband was an engineer and he was into math. He liked math and English. And in fact, he had a lot of problems in his family that he had to get out of too. And so we just kind of pulled together to help you guys. And that's how you got started on education. And you really worked out pretty good. In your minds, all of you had a different goal, so that I had to have a different curriculum for each one of you.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot to juggle. I think one of the things that I've just come to appreciate through my experiences. So I graduated in 2009. I went straight to Bennett College, as I described earlier, for 4 years. Had an internship every single summer, paid internship. They housed me. After I got comfortable, I stopped applying. I didn't apply to anything that didn't offer housing. You know what I'm saying? So if it offered housing, I knew I was good, And then immediately after I graduated, I went to go teach in Miami for a couple of years with Teach for America's organization called Teach for America, and I taught in the inner city of Miami-Dade. Liberty City is the name of the community I taught in, and the things that I was exposed to in terms of, I think I had kind of always adopted this narrative that my childhood was hard. And as you said, there have been periods of time in my childhood where we've been abundantly, blessed. But when I thought about what the reality was for the students that I was teaching, I was like, wow, this is hard. This is hard. And obviously it's not the oppression Olympics, but it just put things into perspective for me that there are real kids who don't have uncle and you who pushed reading on us. The reason why I enjoy reading, why I can write, is because I had that. And these kids that I was teaching, who I love and adore, I view them as my own kids. They've matriculated through school where they've not had the proper support to educate them, given their experiences with trauma. And in my first year, I taught 4th grade, and I had a student get shot. You know what I'm saying? And she survived it, but that's not something a 10-year-old should be experiencing. And so when you think about that kind of trauma, I'm like, wait a minute. The literal way that I'm instructing them has to meet them where they are. A lot of my students struggled with reading, and there was this one chapter, this one book that we were reading. I forgot what it was called, but they in the community of that book, they were going to get rid of like a neighborhood favorite. It was like something that the whole community loved, and they were going to get rid of it. But in the same week, news had broke that the housing projects that most of my students came from, directly across the street from the school, they called the Pork and Beans projects. We found out in that same week that they were going to raise those apartments too. So, break them down, move everybody out, and build new ones. And when I tell you, the lowest readers in the class were able to perform on that assignment, on that assessment that week, because what we were reading literally reflected what they were hearing, what they were talking about. The lowest readers of the class, 100% engagement. And that made me start thinking about how trauma needs to be addressed in schools. And then after that, I moved back to the Bay Area, right? And when I moved back to the Bay Area, it was like a culture shock. I almost felt like I was in a new country. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was completely different from how I had experienced it growing up. You know what I'm saying? All the colored people were moving out. I remember I'd get on the phone with the family and say, like, why are y'all moving again? Like, what do you mean you can't find a place to live? And I had to apologize when I got back, because I was like, oh my God, the housing crisis is for real. And the work that I was doing, I was serving young people who, like you, Waleena, feel like they're spinning their wheels. Except the difference is they didn't have high school diplomas. Maybe they had a record. Maybe they had children. Maybe they didn't have family that they can stay with. So you're talking about somebody who's in their 20s, 21, 22, 23, 24. How can you care about getting your diploma when you're constantly juggling? Yeah. And every time, and what most of my students would tell me, they would tell me that every time they felt like things were going good, they expected something bad to happen. So then they start self-sabotaging because they're like, this is going too smoothly, And then they're in that cycle again, like, well, what happened? Why aren't you? So I say all that to say, I've had time outside of my home, and what I thought was a unique problem to me, I went through school thinking nobody would understand me. My family is way, way too crazy. Like, nobody would get it. And I've had these experiences in Liberty City as an educator. I moved back and did education coaching in the Silicon Valley, supposed to be one of the wealthiest places in the country. Disparity. And I'm hearing now the young people that I'm working with who are young adults describe their schooling experience. I can draw a dotted line to the 9 and 10-year-olds I was teaching in Miami. And then I realized this is trauma thing, this generational trauma that you described now, Annette, and these interpersonal battles that we are constantly grappling with as a result of things that we are not even responsible for. Yeah, it's not a unique situation to me. Like, this is happening all over the country. And I thought it was really important to have this conversation. My mother got on a plane yesterday. Ooh. She said she had to stop to ask the people, are we moving? Is this plane moving? Last time she got on a plane. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I said, Mom, have you ever been to the East Coast before? She said, we from Omaha, Nebraska. I said, that's not the East Coast. I said, it's the Midwest. She said, she was like, oh, well, I've also been to Memphis. She said, well, shit, maybe I haven't been to the East Coast. And like just hearing her kind of plan and make a goal and commit to the goal. And my mother is somebody who does not commit. And she'll be here and hopefully can, share her own story and how she's come to this too. But she told me at the beginning of the year, I will not miss this graduation. I have never seen my mother follow through in the way that she's been able to do. Right. And I was immensely proud of her.
You didn't understand it when I said to you, you don't understand yet what that accomplishment does and how it puts a stop and a foothold on this generational kind of thing. Because we got BAs, you have to be looking at mothers and fathers' sides. It gets deep, and we haven't really had to sit. Nobody really wanted to listen to me because, I got books and books on this stuff. But I knew it would happen one day.
It's a lot.
And it means a lot. It means a lot to your mom. I never saw her since she was maybe 13. Trying to read books, trying to get herself together, trying to get healthy, seeing herself healthy, promising herself she's going to walk again. it's very, very motivating, emotionally motivating.
Yeah.
So
See,
it's a
one
big
thing-
deal. And when you say to someone, "Oh, my granddaughter's graduating from Harvard,"
I know, right? Imagine
it gets
being your
like this.
sister.
You get like this. Because I said to you, I mentioned it to you, and I was like, I had to look at somebody. I went to buy some jeans, simple jeans. The lady, I said, I'm going to a graduation, and I want them to fit properly. And we was just having this little chit chat around the jeans, and she asked me, and she said, well, what school is your granddaughter graduating for? And I said, Harvard in Boston. And it was like this jolt that kind of hit her in the face. And
Interesting.
I actually I've been really laughing about it because it does something for you, and it also it's more than, you don't do it to brag, but you do it. It must represent something in the thought process of Harvard. It must represent something to people that you say, I'm a graduate of Harvard, and the bells just kind of go off, and it just triggers this thing. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, it's my imagination. I said it to somebody else.
To try it out.
Try see if it was just not me.
Yeah.
And because people for a long time didn't even know I had children, let alone talk about my grandchildren. Mm-hmm. It was like, your grandchild's going to Harvard? And the way they say it, everybody's got their special way they say Harvard.
Harvard. That's actually hilarious. But yeah, I think when you brought that up to me, you were like, Del Reese, this is important. You're the first in the family to get a master's. I hadn't even thought about that. Mm-hmm. My first time hearing that was 2 weeks ago. I've been here all year and hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah, Valerie started her master's program when she came to New York. And she wasn't interested.
Yeah. And
she was just saying a couple of weeks ago, she says, Mom, I might, think about, she didn't know she's at a crossroads too.
And I think that's what it's about. That's how change is made in families. You see one person do it, then it's like, okay, all right. Well, I mean, we got the same blood in us, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
She's not a unicorn,
But for the other side of that, not cutting you off, is young people now are having to get. And I know in San Francisco, you got people with these high degrees living on the street. Why? That's the big question, because the industry jobs have come and gone. For a master's student, one thing they don't need a job. They can just create their own, nonprofit or whatever, which is what I expect Waleena to do eventually.
Yeah.
Because she gets tied between, I like helping people and I like
making money.
Beauty. Health and beauty, which equals money.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Auntie? You said you had something to add.
I just wanted to go back to Bridget. She's also had a bout with cancer.
Oh, yeah.
She had that, and she survived that.
My mother is a breast cancer survivor.
She's a straight-up survivor, period.
Yeah.